Today we're going to talk about surveys and experiments and observational studies. You're going to have to know when one is appropriate to use versus another, okay, for finding out some data. So we're starting our unit on probability. We will do possibly some statistics after this probability unit. It's not all about reading. There are a lot of mathematical computations within this, but today it's really about thinking about what you would need to do in order to decide whether you want to do a survey, an experiment, or just an observational study. Surveys are used to collect information, of course, and if everybody involved with the school were surveyed, then the survey would involve the entire population. Sometimes surveys are samples, where you take a random sample of a group. A survey in which every member of the population is polled is called a census. If only 100 people selected at random from the school are surveyed, then it's a sample. So this group of students at this new school wanted to form a basketball team. In order to get funding for the program, they carried out a survey of students and their parents to determine who was in favor of starting a team. If the survey is biased, if it favors certain outcomes, so if the students above only surveyed basketball players and their parents, then that's going to be biased. Why? They're biased towards accepting the team because their kids play basketball. So of course they'd want there to be a team, right? So you would want to survey more people than that. A sample is unbiased if it's random. So or not based on any predetermined characteristics of the population, like saying parents of basketball players. If they sent surveys to 100 students selected at random, then it would be unbiased. We need to know the difference between a biased type of survey and an unbiased, and experiments as well. Now, would this be biased or unbiased? Surveying people going into a pet store to find out if the city's residents support the building and maintaining of a dog park. All right, that's definitely biased. You don't have this on your paper, correct? All right. That is. Okay. I just covered up some things. So, asking every player at a golf course what sport they prefer to watch on TV. All right, that would be biased. Calling 100 randomly selected numbers and asking their opinions on a local tax. Is that okay? Yeah, because it's random, right? So it's unbiased. You're going to get all kinds of answers. Going to a football game and asking 100 random fans about their favorite sport. You went to a football game to make the survey. That's biased. So sometimes it's quite obvious whether it's biased or unbiased, right? To avoid bias in a survey, two things are needed: a strong random sample and unbiased survey techniques. A strong random sample is an unbiased sample with a large number of participants. You can't just ask 3 or 4 people and expect it to be a conclusion that you should be making from it, okay? Not enough. You know, a large number. Christopher wants to determine the most desired location for a senior class trip. Which questions will get him the answer he is seeking? How about, do you like Disneyland? What is he trying to do? It's not a yes or no question. I mean, it could be a yes or no question, but he's trying to get to go to, yeah, he prefers that, doesn't he? Possibly. Okay, it sounds like it. Now, my students last hour, they're like, that would be awesome for a senior trip. That's where my senior trip was, but it wasn't Disneyland, it was Disney World. They had the whole park, a whole place, Disney World, open for senior night. So we took a bus to Orlando, because I lived in South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, and we drove people from all over the state. Seniors, they went to there, and they had the park closed down at like 9 o'clock at night for public, and then it was open all night for the kids. Quite the party. Nothing but seniors from high school. Oh my gosh, it was crazy. They did it for quite a few years. It was a lot of fun. Oh yeah. You just paid a flat fee and you got to go on all the everything. No, stop it. Okay, which question will you determine the most popular horror movie at a school? Did you enjoy the last horror movie you saw? Which question will determine the most popular horror movie at school? Did you enjoy the last movie? That's not a, isn't that messed up? Oh, here's the, which better, romance or comedy? All right, let's move on. I think what we're going to do now is jump to some concrete examples that we have in our packet, because there's just more than I want to spend time on in here. Oh, by the way, this is going to be important. To distinguish between correlation and causation. We'll discuss that in a few minutes as well. An observed association between results of an experiment and the treatment does not necessarily imply that the treatment caused the results. When there is a correlation between two events, the two events are related. When there's a causation, one event is shown to be the direct cause of another. So, is this correlation or causation? Studies have shown that students are less energetic after they eat lunch. Okay, does eating lunch cause you to be less energetic? There's probably a correlation. Okay, just a correlation. The statement ignores crucial factors that might have a causal influence on both. So you could have another reason that you're less energetic after you had lunch. Okay, you're just tired. You didn't get enough sleep. You know, there's a lot of different things. There's a correlation possibly though. Okay. Oh, here's another one. If I lift weights, I can make the football team. Will lifting weights cause you to make the football team? No, but will there be a correlation to whether you work out and whether you make it? There could be, right? There could be a correlation. All right, so let's get to here. So we're going to look at surveys, studies, and experiments. You have another column that says bias. I don't know why my picture here doesn't have that on it. Somehow we must have missed it when we made the slide. But anyway, a survey, what a survey is a means of obtaining information from a population or a sample of the population. What you do is you take a poll. Okay, so when you're doing a survey, you're asking for people's opinion. Okay, you ask opinion. What you're doing, you're going to poll people. Okay, and then at the bottom side it says bias if it says there's a design bias. If the design favors, you already have this written down. If design favors a certain outcome, then there's bias. No, you didn't have to write that because it was already printed there for you. So when there's bias, it's when you are, what does bias imply? You might be trying to make people think your way. Think a certain way. Might not be your way, just a certain way. You're trying to make it come out the way you want it to come out. Okay? That's when there's bias. An observational study is an examination in which individuals are observed. You're strictly watching. Okay, so you just watch. No attempt is made to influence the results in an observational study. An example of one, observing a group of 100 people, 50 of whom have been taking a treatment. You're collecting and analyzing and interpreting the data. That's it. Okay. They won't know what you're looking for. I'm just trying to squeeze in a little note. Okay, so if you're doing a true observational study, they will not know. The participants who you're observing won't know what you're looking for. Okay. Your column on no bias is like no influence, just observation. I'm not going to write it down since you guys have it. An experiment, an operation which something is intentionally done to people, animals, or objects, and then the response is observed. So you study the differences between two groups. It has to have two groups of people, one of which receives the treatment. That's called the treatment group, and the other is the control group. They get the placebo. Okay, so you have two groups, treatment group and a control group. Oh, placebo, do you know what that is? Something like a fake sugar pill, for example. So like if you're going to give a medicine out, you wanted to find out if a medicine was effective, you get a group of people, you give them all a pill. And some of them are getting the real thing, some of them are getting a fake sugar pill that does nothing, and then you observe the results. They can't know which one they're getting. That's when there's bias. If they know which pill they're getting, then there's bias in the experiment. Okay, so example 1. State whether the following situation represents an experiment or an observational study. Identify the control group and the treatment group. So you got 2 different answers, well actually 3. If it's an experiment, determine whether there is bias. Okay, find 20 adult ducks, half of which are domesticated, and compare their weights. This is simply an observational study. You're just watching. But the domesticated ducks are the treated group because they've been domesticated. Something's been done to them compared to the wild ducks. So the wild ducks are the control group. Is this bias? No. They're just comparing their weights. They're just observing what their weights are. These are just examples that we're reviewing. Okay? We're not really doing answers here, okay? All right, so the control group again has no change. Just to remind you, little notes that I was going to write. And this is the group that there is a change, is your treatment group. All right, example 2, determine whether the following situation calls for a survey, an observational study, or an experiment. You want to know how students and parents feel about school uniforms, so you would do a survey. It is best to ask a random sample of students and a random sample of parents to give their opinions. When you're getting opinion, that's going to be a survey. All right, we're going to try a couple now. State whether each situation represents an experiment or an observational study. We're going to identify the control group and the treatment group. And if it's an experiment, we're going to determine whether it is biased. Find 300 students and randomly split them into 2 groups. All right, got 2 groups. One group practices basketball 3 times per week, and the other group does not practice basketball at all. Are you doing something to them? What are you doing to them? You're making them practice basketball or not practice basketball. So after 3 months, you're going to interview the students to find out how they feel about school. Okay, strange question. All right, now hold on. So, first of all, this is an experiment. Okay, it is an experiment. There's bias. Okay, first of all, the control group plays and I'm just going to write basketball BB. Oops, that was I just said that backwards, guys. That's the treatment group. And I knew it as soon as I said they play. Sorry, my jumping to thinking about something else first. The treatment group plays basketball. Control group doesn't. Okay, now, there is some bias. What's the bias here? That's it. They know what group they're in. Okay, the bias is they know the group they're in. Now, I didn't even get into the weird question that was going to be coming after this. So they know what group. Do you think possibly the question of, after 3 months, they interview the students to find out how they feel about school, that possibly the group that plays together might feel a little more positive? Possibly just because they were, I don't know though, if basketball, right? So I thought it was kind of an odd question to ask kids after you make them play basketball or not play basketball. I don't know. They might be happier. So you could think of it, you're saying it could go either way. But this thing is biased, period, because you know what group they're in. That's the whole thing. All right. So find 100 students. Half of them participated in the school math team and compare their grade point average. You're just making an observation. So it's an observational study. The treatment would be kids on the math team. And the control, kids not on the math team. Now, did we make them do anything? We didn't make them do anything, so there's no bias. They just, all they did was see who's doing what. I picked some random people, and some of them were on the math team, some of them were not. Now, compare their grade point average. I'm thinking they're implying something there, but not necessarily true. Okay. Not all math students do well in every class, do they? Just because they're good at math doesn't mean they're good at everything. But often it is true. Well, anyway. All right, distinguish between correlation and causation. This on 1B. When one event happens, the other is more likely. When the pond is frozen, it's more likely to snow because it's freezing outside. Okay? So there's a correlation between the pond being frozen and it may be snowing. Causation, though, is when one event is the direct cause of another event. Turning on the light makes the room brighter. Okay? That's going to happen. So one causes the other. Determine whether the following statement shows correlation or causation. Explain your reasoning. Children who live in very large houses usually get larger allowances than children who live in small ones. They've already answered the question for us. There is a correlation there. There is no reason to assume that the size of their houses causes children to receive more allowance. Okay? But children living in both a large house and getting a large allowance could be the result of a third factor, the amount of money their parents have. Okay? So there might be a correlation. There might be a connection is what that means. Now we're going to do our own. Determine whether the following shows correlation or causation, and we have to explain it. If I jog in the rain, I'm going to get sick. All right, there is a correlation. Okay, now, you may get sick for other reasons, right? Okay, so you may get sick for some other reason besides the fact that you went out in the rain, but I bet your mom told you probably. I mean, you're not guaranteed to get sick. I guess I better spell that with an apostrophe. You're not guaranteed to get sick because you jogged in the rain. But what happens? You know, I used to say that, you know, a lot of kids would say they got sick because it was cold outside. You didn't get sick because it was cold outside, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? You had to get some germs, right? If you just went running outside and it's wet and cold, unless there's a virus that you're getting for some reason, or you stressed your body out so much it was that the immune system was down, that's why you get sick, possibly from running in the rain. Does that make sense? Your immunities go down because you're stressed out from doing all that physical activity. Okay, now, studies have shown that eating more fish will improve your math grade. Have they really? Aw. You do not need to eat the ocean of fish. There's way too many, a lot of fish out there. Okay, now, I was asked, of course, because I lived in South Florida, did I eat a lot of fish? Well, the answer is yes, but that's not, I also come from a family of German engineers, so it's not like, that's not why I can do math, you know, because I ate fish or, all right. Anyway, is there a correlation though? All right, I'm going to tell you. There is a correlation. It is correlatable. All right, it's correlatable. I don't even know if that's a word, but eating fish may help brain function, but doesn't cause you to have good math grades. Okay, it doesn't cause. Doesn't cause it, I guess I'd say. Doesn't cause your math grade to improve. If you use a library book, you will have to pay a fine. Thank you very much. That is definitely a causation. My C looks a little strange. The library is going to charge you a fine, right?
Fine.
Yeah, Sam, you don't have, doesn't mean you're going to pay it. Okay, well, they're going to charge you one. You want to get another book, you got to pay it, right? Wait, find? I wrote find instead of fine. Whoops. Reading a diet book will make you lose weight. Will it, reading that book cause you to lose the weight? Okay. Well, correlation. Okay, come on now. There is a correlation though. If you're reading a diet book, aren't you more likely to try to lose weight? It's not like, oh, I want to go home and read a diet book to go to sleep. Yeah, that'll put you to sleep. You'll probably cry, right? Probably. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I wrote probably. Probably try. It's probably how you guys type it in your cell phones when you text. Probably. Yeah, probably. If I miss a day of school, I will not earn the perfect attendance award. Causation. If you miss a day, you don't have perfect attendance. Anybody headed there? Trying to get that perfect attendance for all 12 years of high school? Oh, dang, I hope you're not in high school for 12 years. Oh, 12 years of grade school. Oh my gosh. 12 years of high school. I love it that you picked up on that, like, bang, immediately. You're not allowed to stay here that long. I'm sorry. They make you go when you hit 21. Okay. Owning an expensive car. Guys, come on. We're goofing around. Owning an expensive car will make you earn lots of money. It's a correlation, though. You probably make a lot if you own one. This is true. Let's not go into those ideas that might go along with that. You probably make a lot if you bought one. Now, again, I like the fact that Jack brought up, well, maybe somebody gave it to you, right? Like your parents. Okay, for this portion of the lesson, that is the assignment. It's at the bottom of that page. We are continuing now, though, on to 2 and 3. This is really some more of the same types of ideas. Okay. All right, so you're going to be doing that book page. At least I hope you will. The steps in a statistical study are shown below. The parameters are questions about a population characteristic. That's a parameter. I'm not going to go into all of these. I don't want to read everything here to you. If you get interested in reading more, you may. But the steps in typical statistical study are shown as identify the objective. You want to know what do you want to do. Okay, obviously. Choose a sample or collect some data, organize the data, and calculate some sample statistics. Make the inferences, which are, well, what happened, or conclusions about the population. The star that's here, this is a pretty good sentence or paragraph here. To obtain good information and draw accurate conclusions about a population, it's important to select an unbiased sample. A bias is an error that results in a misrepresentation of members of a population. So we've already discussed an example like that. You don't ask people at a pet store what if they like pets. Kind of silly. A poorly chosen sample can cause biased results. To introduce the possibility of selecting a biased sample, to reduce it, you would take a random sample. All right, let's go on to this box. In a survey, data are collected from responses given by members of a population regarding the characteristics, behaviors, or opinion. That's your survey, what that is. An example, to determine whether the student body likes a new cafeteria menu, the student council asks random sample of students for their opinion. You're going to be doing when you want opinions, you're going to do a survey. An experiment, that's going to be when you're divided into 2 groups. You've got your experimental group and your control group. A restaurant's considering creating meals with chicken instead of beef. They randomly give half of a group of participants meals with chicken and the other half meals with beef and ask how they like their meals. Okay, another example of type of study, observational study. Members of a sample are measured or observed. All you're doing is you're doing no effect on them. You just look. You just watch them. Okay, an example, research at an electronics company. Observe a group of teenagers using different laptops and note their reactions. This is already telling what kind of thing it is. A record label wants to test 3 designs for an album cover. Which one do you like, A, B, or C? I like B. I like A also. That looks abstract to me, but it's okay. All right, they randomly select a teenager at a local high school to view the covers and watch and record their actions. That's just an observational study. They're only looking at their reactions to them. Okay. All right, a census is when you do a survey and each member of the population is polled. So the city council wants to start a recycling program. They send out a questionnaire to 200 random citizens asking what items they would recycle. It's a survey, okay, and the responses are to a questionnaire, and it's a sample. So it's not representative of the entire population. This is a sample, not a census. All right, let's do a couple of questions that they didn't give us any answers to. Scientists studying the behavior of one group of dogs given a new heartworm treatment and another group of dogs given a false treatment or placebo. What is this? Is it an experiment, observational study, or what was the other choice? Survey. That's an experiment. No. Well, what do you mean? True, but then the owners wouldn't either. But you're still, it doesn't matter. It just has to be a control group that you're that you're doing something to, and a group that actually gets something. So you have to have the control to make it a valid experiment. The dogs given the heartworm medicine, that would be your treatment group. And the one that are given the false treatment, that's your control group. They're still given something. The little dogs think they won't get heartworm. Joking, like they even know. Usually you have to stick that in some piece of cheese or something to get them to eat it anyway, right? All right, this one, the yearbook committee conducts a study to determine whether students would prefer to have a print yearbook or both print and digital. So what would you be likely to do to find that information out? Because you want their opinion. And so you would do a survey. Calls for a survey. You would want to pick the students at random or survey everybody, right? Okay, so if you're not going to do a random selection, do them all. To determine whether a survey, experiment, observational study, think about how the data will be obtained and whether or not the participants will be affected by the study. Okay. These are already telling us the answer, so let's jump to something that's not. Okay, so you could read these opinions. That's be a survey. I'll just quick. This one's a pharmaceutical company that wants to test a new medicine, so that's going to be an experiment. All right, two examples, 2A and 2B together. A research company wants to study smokers and non-smokers to determine whether 10 years of smoking affects lung capacity. What are you going to do? Are you going to survey them? Ask them if they breathe okay? I'm sorry. Hey, you ever cough up anything? What's going on? No, you're going to do an observational study. Yeah, I don't think that you're going to get takers for that experiment either. Like, here, you guys have to smoke for 10 years. You guys can't smoke for 10 years, and we're going to watch you. No. All right. Enough goofing off. Observational study. So, pet. A national pet chain wants to know whether customers would pay a small annual fee, to participate in a rewards program. They randomly select 200 customers and send them questionnaires. Well, that's a survey. They just said they're sending them questionnaires. You're asking their opinion. All right, so that's a survey. You want opinion. Do I want to look into this? Okay. Oh, I do. A survey question. Oh boy. Sometimes I have a bachelor's in advertising with a marketing minor, and so I did do surveys, and that was part of my studies at school, was learning about writing surveys. I hate taking surveys that have bad questions. And because I've studied that and written them myself for a grade, that I pick them apart. I tend to be kind of critical of people's surveys because They're often confusing. They often cause a strong reaction, okay, if they use improper wording. So you want to avoid questions like this. You also want to avoid encouragement to a certain response. That encourages bias. Okay, that's going to make bias happen. So it's important to write questions that are clear and precise, and they avoid questions like these. Did you ever have a question that you didn't know how to answer it because part of it you agreed with and part of it you didn't? I bet you have, or you've read a question and you said, well, wait, how am I supposed to answer that? It's asking me two different things. You know, it should be very concise. It should attract only one issue at a time. So the other one was the ones that encourage a certain response. Don't you, how about taking a survey and your opinion, it's a yes or no question and you are not a yes or no answer. You know what I'm saying? They ask you a question. It gives you the choice of yes or no, period. But that's not where you are at with that. You know, you can't answer the question accurately because you don't feel it's a full yes or a full no. I felt that way many times about some questions. Maybe you like the ones better that go agree or disagree and some range in there strongly, and I don't know. So that's why they're worded different ways. Oh, here, determine whether this is biased or unbiased. Don't you agree that the cafeteria food should serve healthier food? Oh my gosh, that's biased because it's actually implying that the food they serve isn't healthy. And why would you, and it's also encouraging you to think that, or say you want to agree because why would you want to eat bad food, right? Yeah, sure, give me some salmonella tomorrow. Never mind. So, here's a good question. How often do you exercise? Bam, there's an answer, right? You can answer that question, hopefully. It's unbiased. All right, so is this a good question or not? How many glasses of water do you, whatever that is. How many glasses of water do you drink a day? I need some water. How many, is that a good question? Yeah, that's a good one. Unbiased. Oh, wait, what if you say, well, I don't drink any water because fish poop in it? No, I'm joking. That's why I better delete that part. Do you prefer watching exciting action movies or boring documentaries? I like documentaries better than stupid as some of these. That's so biased. Okay, you got the idea, right? Yeah, applying all I like documentaries. Some of them are very good. When designing, clearly state your objective, identify your population, and carefully choose unbiased survey questions. We're going to do one of your own together. Let's just quick answer one more question and get an idea of what kind of answers I'm looking for. They're not going to be identical from one person to the next, but some parts of it should be close. In a follow-up article, this was about kids wanting to take online courses. It says, conduct a survey to determine how many teachers from a school with at least 5 years of experience would be interested in teaching an online course. State the objective of the survey, suggest the population, and write 2 unbiased survey questions. So 1, what's the objective? How many teachers are interested? These are answers in your packet. Are interested. You know we're on worksheet 3, right? In teaching online. All right, so that's your objective. What's your population? What teachers, though? Okay. Okay, so the population that you want to survey from would be all teachers at the school, right? With at least 5 years experience. So are you going to assume that you're only going to pull those people with the 5 years, or are you going to pull all the teachers? You know, that kind of might be a question. So state the objective. We did that. We're going to, and 2 questions. Ready? Let's do an unbiased question. What's your first question going to be? What do you think? Come on. Give me one. Okay, that's a good one. Now, do you have internet access? Okay, at least. Anything else? Pardon? Oh, they're not going to take them. They're going to teach them. You want to? Okay, if offered, would you teach one? Would you be interested in teaching one? Yep. I like the if offered even. Oh my gosh, my hand's getting tired. On, what's that say? O-line. Online. Okay, does anybody have another one? What's your experience with computers? Sure.